Hello, I'm Mark Hammett, minister of the Weber Road Church of Christ in the sparkling city by the sea. That's Corpus Christi, Texas. If you're ever in our area or live in our community, we'd love to have you visit with us. And I'm glad that you've joined us for this daily devotional and Bible reading. And we'll actually be reading in just a few moments from Acts chapter 17. So if you'd like to turn there, go ahead and do that in any version, although I'll be reading from the English Standard Version. That's Acts chapter 17. You know, it seems like I've told several stories in the recent weeks about those who are lost and become lost in some way. Well, there's a story recently about a 38-year-old California woman who went hiking in Utah's Zion National Park. She could not be found afterwards. Someone dropped her off. They went to pick her up later that day, and she was nowhere to be seen. She was an avid outdoors woman who spent a lot of time in nature. She just enjoyed being alone. But when she didn't return home, of course, her family soon became frantic in their searches. Eventually, her 19-year-old college daughter took a break from school, went to Utah to search for her mother, of course. Well, it was nearly 2 weeks after being reported missing that another park visitor told officials that the woman may have been sighted in a certain area. And sure enough, when they went to search that area, she was found. She was healthy, other than being a little dehydrated and malnourished in some ways. She returned home to her family immediately. Can you imagine being lost in the wilderness for almost 2 weeks? I mean, here's a woman who knew about nature. She loved it. And her life was in danger, though, because we as humans need things like the proper clothing and shelter and food and water and warmth. Fortunately for this woman, although she hit her head early in her hike, she ended up by a body of water, and she stayed there because she knew that was the safest place for her to be, as others might be searching for her. But even more importantly, we need God in our lives. There's that old illustration that I've often used about the fish. You go fishing, you catch a fish. If you bring that fish up out of the water and put him in your boat or on land, that fish will strive to get what it needs. Its gills will go in and out as it slowly suffocates. Because what does it need? It needs water. It needs to be in its element. It needs to be in that water so that it can survive. And how many people today are literally like fish out of water? They're searching for something to help them to live and to thrive in this world, yet they're doing everything without God. And essentially, in a spiritual way, they're like fish out of water, where they need to be in their element, which is with the God who created them and knows everything that they need. Let's go ahead and read from our passage found in Acts chapter 17, starting in verse 22. It tells us there, "So Paul, standing in the midst of the Areopagus, said, 'Men of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious. For as I passed along and observed the objects of your worship, I found also an altar with this inscription, To the unknown God. What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needs anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God in the hope that they might feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, even as some of your own poets have said, for we are indeed his offspring. Being then God's offspring, we ought not to think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image formed by the art and imagination of man. The times of ignorance God overlooked, but now he commands all men or all people everywhere to repent, because he has fixed the day in which he would judge the world in righteousness by a man whom he has appointed, And of this he has given assurance to all by raising him from the dead. And now when they heard of the resurrection of the dead, some mocked, but others said, we will hear you again about this. And so Paul went out from their midst, but some men joined him and believed, among whom also were Dionysius and the Areopagite, and the woman named Damaris, and others with them. Again, what a great story. People that did not know God, that were told about the one true God by an apostle, by one who knew God, and his relationship with him allowed him to know God personally. As Christians, we need to search for those who are searching for God, and as Christians, we need to draw even closer to God than we are today. And may the Lord bless you richly as you seek to follow his will.